Paul Goodrich. In this video, we're going to learn how to play Mana Source, the 1 to 4 player adventure game by Goodrich Games. In Mana Source, each player controls a fantasy hero in a world at war. Players will have to overcome difficult enemies, solve unique challenges, and coordinate their abilities if they're going to survive. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play.
To set up the game, place the main board in the center of the table where it is in reach of all players. Each player should choose a side of the main board to use as their side during the game. Then shuffle the enemy action deck and place it on the main board. Then each player chooses a primary class from the 5 classes and informs the other players which class they have chosen. In this example, I'll be playing as the Warden class, so I've gone ahead and pre-selected some skills associated with that class. Then each player chooses a secondary class. This will affect which other class they can select skills from. In this example, I will be selecting the Reagent class. Each game mode has special rules about which skills can be selected from, so for the basics, let's focus on what they have in common. Each player builds a hand of 9 cards using up to 1 elite skill, which is denoted by this yellow symbol at the top of the card, and the rest non-elite skills from those classes. So in this case, I have chosen 8 skills from the Warden class and 1 skill from the Reagent class. In addition, players add 1 basic attack card to their hand. Give each player a round reference card, health dial, and mana die or mana dial. Set each player's starting health to 60 and their starting mana to 5. If playing the Reagent class, set their starting mana to 10 instead. If playing Knight as a class, place another dial next to the player's mana for tracking adrenaline. Its value starts at 0. Set aside all of the condition tokens for use by any player. The reference for each of these conditions is listed on the player board. In addition, at fewer than 4 players, groups may optionally add 1 or more NPC ally characters to work with in defending against their adversaries. Groups may have up to a maximum of 4 characters, including players. These characters mostly act of their own accord, flipping actions from the ally action deck. If using at least one of these characters, shuffle the ally action deck and place it into play next to the NPC character. Also set each NPC's starting health to the value listed on the card. In Kaya's case, her starting health is 45. Each game, your group will have a set of adversaries to battle against. In the replayable cooperative mode, these will be selected randomly or generated by the companion app based on desired game length. In the campaign, each encounter will be determined by the selected scenario. In this encounter, we are instructed to place P-1 Hummingbears and P-1 Kainar Assassins into play. P on NPC cards and scenarios refers to the number of party members. In this example, I will be setting up for 2 players, so I will place 1 Hummingbear and 1 Kainar Assassin into play. Determine the starting health value for a given enemy by looking at the number at the top right of the card, and place a dial or dice into play to represent the remaining health for that enemy. Each player should take the hand of skill cards they have selected and place them into their hand, and any associated effect cards with those skills they should place off to the side for now for use later. Skill effect cards are denoted by a colored border around the edges of the skill card. At the start of the game, choose 1 player to receive the aggro token. The aggro token determines who the enemies will target with their actions during the round. In solo play, players must choose 1 or more NPC ally characters to work with in defending against their adversaries for a minimum of 2 party members. Since I am playing solo, I will select Kaya as a party member. Competitive setup follows the same rules as the replayable cooperative mode with a few key differences. In competitive, choosing a hand and secondary class is done in secret. For example, I let my opponent know that I am playing the Warden as my primary class, but do not tell them what skills I am bringing or that I have Reagent as my secondary class. And in the competitive game mode, there is no enemy setup required. Your adversaries will be each other. Each round, each player selects 1 card from their hand and place it face down in the middle of the play area. Players simultaneously reveal the cards. In this case, I have played Savage Overgrowth, which has a mana cost of 3. So I will pay that cost by moving down my mana die by the appropriate number. Then I will resolve the action. In this case, I will deal 10 damage to an enemy and inflict 2 rounds of vulnerable to that enemy, which causes the enemy to take additional damage on future rounds. Each player's card enters the recharge zone along their chosen side of the board based on the number that's present on the recharge of the card. In this case, because it has the number 4, I will place it in the 4 section on my chosen side of the board. This is done to indicate that it cannot be played again until sufficient rounds have passed. Then cards and effects in the recharge zone move 1 space down. That concludes a player's actions during a round. Play then continues until the encounter's victory condition is met. This encounter's victory condition is to defeat all of the enemies present on the board. Let's talk about what's present on each card. Across the top of the card is the name of the card, a symbol indicating whether it is an elite skill or not. Remember that you can only have up to 1 elite skill in your hand at one time. Below the title of the card is any traits associated with the card. These traits are used for card effects, but most are not used within the base game. On the left side here is any resource cost to play the card. Costs are paid after the reveal step. In the middle we have the card type. All cards are either attacks or talent actions. Attacks are denoted by a sword icon, and talents are denoted by their associated class gem. In this case, the Warden's class gem is displayed here, so this is a Warden talent. Some cards may have additional icons to signify a difference in how the effect is applied. We'll go over each of these in detail later on. And then at the end of the top row, the card recharge. This determines how long before you can play it again. In the middle of the card, we have its played effect. In this case, for Savage Overgrowth, you can see that the card's effect is to deal 10 damage and inflict 2 rounds of vulnerable. At the bottom right of the card, this number is used to track skill unlocks during the campaign game mode and can be ignored in other modes of play. Let's go through a few other cards that have different effects. Let's say I played the Ginger Honey Blossom card. We can see on this card that it has a mana cost of 1, and that it has a blue up arrow icon that indicates that it is an advantage action in addition to being a talent action. As long as this action resolves during the resolve effect step, I will take the associated effect card during step 7 and apply it to myself for the duration listed on the card. So in this case, for 3 rounds, I will have this effect, which will apply during the subsequent 3 rounds of play. The Swear Down card from the Illusionist class is an example of a threat action. Threats are very similar to advantage actions. For example, with the Wear Down skill, we would apply the Wear Down effect card to a target for 2 rounds. On the subsequent 2 rounds of play, the Kaidar Assassin would be dealt 3 damage each round. Illusionists have an action type known as an interrupt. Interrupts are actions that prevent other skill effects from being resolved. Check the application of any interrupt during step 4 to see if it has interrupted any other skill. Stances are special actions that can be played in addition to another action that turn, and they take impact during the turn that they are played. Many stances last for more than 1 round and are tracked via the associated effect card. There are 10 conditions in Mana Source. Conditions are common status effects applied by different skill abilities. Each condition's effect is applied during the resolve effects step. In the case of the bleeding condition, the entity will take 1 damage each round. In the case of burning, 2 damage each round. In the case of poison condition, entities will take 1 damage, and also their healing effects will be halved, rounded up. If an entity is affected by blind, any attacks that they make during the duration of blind will miss, and then the blind condition will end. If an entity is affected by dizzy, the first talent that an entity uses will fail, and then dizzy will end. If an entity is stunned, they cannot play an action, and targets cannot be stunned consecutively. If an entity is affected by the weakness condition, they will subtract 1 from all of their skill damage and skill effect damage, but importantly, not damage from other conditions. If an entity is affected by the vulnerable condition, they will add 1 to all damage taken from skills and skill effects that target them, but importantly not from other conditions like bleeding or burning. If a player has the wounded condition, they will have to disable 2 skills from their hand, not including a basic attack card. These cards should be placed under the wounded token until wounded is removed from the player. If wounded is applied to an NPC character, all actions of that character should be treated as 1 stage less severe down to the minimum. If crippled is applied in a competitive mode, the player's action is played face up unless all entities are crippled. In PvE modes, this has the same effect on enemy NPCs. However, in PvE for players or NPC allies, they will instead gain the aggro token, and enemy actions against that character are one stage more severe. Let's see an example of how a round in the cooperative game modes of Mana Source would be played. When playing with NPC allies, draw a card from the ally action deck for each ally. In this case, I've drawn the rare symbol, so I match the rare symbol with the icon listed on the ally action card. In this case, Kaya will be using Chain Lightning during the round, which will deal 8 damage to a target of my choosing, and if the target is vulnerable, may deal 2 damage to that target. Otherwise, you may deal 2 damage to another target. Players then should deal out an enemy action card per enemy that's present on the game board. So we talked about the basics of what happens each round. Let's go over those steps in more detail. During a round, each player may play an action in up to one stance or do nothing. In this case, I will choose to play the Savage Overgrowth card, placing it face down on the game board. Once all players have chosen their actions, reveal the cards for those actions. Pay any costs associated with the action. In this case, I will pay 3 for Savage Overgrowth. Flip the enemy action cards to reveal their actions. If any stance or interrupt type of action was played, apply their effects immediately during step 4. Then resolve skills, advantages, threats, and conditions that are active during step 5. Apply the enemy actions first in order. On this round, the Hummingbear has flipped a basic attack action, indicated by this symbol. We match the symbol to the action here on the Hummingbear card. We can see that the Hummingbear is attacking me for 3 damage and inflicting wounding for 2 rounds. So I will decrease my health by 3. Then I will resolve the action of the Kainar Assassin, match the symbol on the enemy action card to the rare icon that's present on the Kainar Assassin card. In this case, it's using the Ignore Plight action, which is a stance. Remove any condition other than stunned and flip another action. In addition, the Kainar Assassin has used the shock action, so it will deal 2 damage and inflict stun for 1 round. So I will decrease my health by another 2 damage. Once I have resolved the actions for both enemies, I can take their cards and place them in the discard pile. Then I can resolve the actions of any party members in any order that I choose. Kai on her turn has flipped the rare icon, dealing 8 damage to an enemy. Neither target is vulnerable, so she will be dealing 2 damage to another target. In this case, I will choose to deal 8 damage to the Hummingbear and 2 damage to the Kainar Assassin from Kaya's action. Then I will deal the 10 damage from Savage Overgrowth to the Hummingbear enemy, bringing its health down to 0, which means that the enemy will be removed during the removal step. Once I have resolved my action, I will place it in the 4 recharge slot, based on the number that's present here on the card. In step 6, perform an aggro assessment of who did the most damage during the previous round. That character will receive the aggro token and be the focus of enemy actions during the next round. Both Kaya and myself did 10 damage during the round. This means that we have a choice of who will gain the aggro token during the following round. Since I have more starting health than Kaya does, I will choose to keep the aggro token for the next round. Then apply any new effects added by the resolution of an action in step 5. Since I was wounded and stunned during the round, these conditions are applied at this time. At step 8, remove any cards and effects at duration or health 0. Since I do not have any cards or effects at duration 0, nothing will happen for me at this time. Since the Hummingbear has 0 health remaining, it will be removed from the board at this time. In step 9, enter the Gather Mana step. You may lose 1 health in order to gain 1 mana, or if you hit with an attack during the round, you may gain 1 adrenaline instead. Step 10 is the Recharge step. All actions and effects within the Recharge zone move down by 1 step. And then finally, step 11. If a PvE encounter requires you to track the number of rounds, advance the round token at this time. After all these steps have followed, a new round of play begins where players choose actions from their hand. From here, play would continue until all encounter victory conditions are met or all party members are defeated.
That's it. That's everything you need to know to start playing Mana Source. You'll encounter some special rules and surprises within the campaign and replayable modes, but I'll leave those to you to discover. Thanks for watching.